There's around 65 million people have been displaced from their homes, which is the largest number ever recorded, really. And so we're facing an unprecedented humanitarian crisis when it comes to people who are fleeing their homes. For a large number of refugees, they actually cannot voluntarily repatriate to their home countries. They cannot locally integrate into their host countries. And so UN, HCR, and the resettlement countries will work together to say, for a small number of individuals who cannot return home or locally integrate, we should consider resettlement for them, where they actually will be chosen and taken to a third country where they can actually locally integrate into that host community. The US actually resettles less than half of 1% of the world's refugees. Right now we're facing more people who have been displaced, and yet our acceptance of refugees in terms of numbers is smaller than it was in 1980.
People tend to think that they're getting a free ride somehow, that they're getting services that Americans don't get. And that's far from the truth. They're not getting much at all, and they're expected to make a life within 90 days of resettlement.
My family immigrated from Rwanda in the 50s, and I was born in the east part of the Congo. And then when I was 10 years old, we moved to the south part of the Congo to live with my uncle. We were living there till 1998 when the war broke between Rwanda government and Congo. My family had a liquor store business, so that's why I feel like when we were attacked by the Congolese government, the things that we have, the material things, really saved us because they came with guns. They start taking liquors and taking money, and they say that we came to kill you, and then we change our mind. So when they came, they arrested my uncle, and then my two uncles, they arrested them, and then they left us. The Red Cross found out that we were there. It was not safe for us to be just in the house unattended with no security. So that's when they registered us. So after they registered us, we were safe. And other families from Rwanda were brought to my house. So they brought 4 more families. We had a 3-bedroom house, and then we had another guest house that has 2 bedrooms. So they brought about 24 people to live with us. And they provided security for us. So we were in a house arrest for like almost a year. Some of the guards, the soldiers, tried to rape my sisters, and then they tried to shoot at us, tried to kill us, even though they were supposed to keep us safe. Those, I would say, were some of the difficult moments for us to go through. It was almost a year we were living together in our house. We couldn't go to school, couldn't go anywhere. And eventually they moved us because the government official took our house. So when we got there, the other place, it was a room where about 150 people slept in one room. So we stayed there for another 2 months. And then there was a group that went to Belgium because they had their families. And then we were told that we're gonna go to Benin, to a refugee camp. When we left Congo, we knew already that Benin was just a temporary place for us that would come into the US. We were assigned Clarkston as a city where we were gonna be. We didn't get to pick the city, and we were not the only one. So every single refugee, they were assigned a city where they were gonna go. So when we left, we knew that we were gonna go to Clarkston.
Clarkston is known as the most ethnically diverse square mile in America. 40 different nationalities, 60 different languages spoken in just this little over 1 square mile community. And we've been welcoming refugees for almost 35 years. Clarkston, as The Ellis Island to the south welcomes them for the first few years that they're in America, and we're kind of like a little starter city in a lot of ways for refugees. The city's been around for 130 years. It was a railroad town, a place for the steam engine to fill up the water tank before it kept on going out to outside of Atlanta and continue on its way. Used to be more goats than people here at one point, but we definitely have more people here than goats now.
Atlanta has a perimeter, 285. We're less than a mile outside the perimeter, so you could almost consider this an urban area, but it is its own little city. It's 1.6 square miles. Over half of the population here are foreign-born, and over half of those are refugees. So it's a melting pot in every sense of the word.
This community was a sleepy suburb of Atlanta, mostly Caucasian, and it was in some ways kind of a retirement community. There was the opportunity because there were a lot of manufacturing facilities in the area that could provide jobs. There were a lot of apartment communities that could house resettled refugees. There was great transportation in and out of the main hubs of Atlanta. And so it seemed like a perfect fit, but there was a lot of tension in the beginning because these people were not like those that were already currently living here. And over a period of 10 to 15 years, the tension began to dissolve because they saw a group of people that were showing up very open to learning this culture, excited about being a part of this community and adding value to it.
There are also a lot of people who live here on purpose. You know, they choose to be here because they want to be in this kind of community. So it has this really great, buy-in to the community.
And as a mayor, I couldn't ask for anything better. This combination of new Americans coming in and then current native-born Americans who want to welcome refugees and want to see this future where you can have all of these religions and languages and cultures and ethnicities and tribes living, sort of side by side. Those are strengths, I believe, in Clarkston, not weaknesses.
That's where they apply for refugee resettlement. This is all the security, background security, medical examination, that's all here. And then in the end, there's another security check, like right before travel. And then from here, once they've cleared all of this, then DHS approves them to travel. And then they're scheduled to travel, and then they go through a process called ready for travel. So, and then after that, their their flight information is then sent to us at the headquarters office, and then we send it on to the field. And then that's how they come.
Refugees are provided a plane ticket to come to the United States of America by the International Organization for Migration, IOM. But when they get to the United States of America, they actually have to pay back that plane ticket. And what that does is it actually establishes credit for them when they come here. The travel loan is just one aspect of the larger refugee resettlement program. We have basic services that we provide for refugees when they get here. So we obviously provide them with housing, we ensure that they get their proper documents in place, we enroll their children in school, and we help with the basic things that their families need. But all of us know in order for any of us to survive, we need community and we need relationships. At World Relief, we have a time period of about 8 months at which we actually are assisting the refugees directly. And it is really in that period that's really critical for them to get assistance from our offices as well as local volunteers in their transitions. Because for a lot of them, it's their first time being in the United States of America. Obviously, English is not their first language. So there's a lot of challenges associated with that. After the 8 months, we really depend on local communities, businesses, and church groups and others to come alongside refugees and make sure that they can thrive beyond that.
I came at Friends of Refugee looking for a part-time job, and Lauren told me that she would need someone that speaks multiple languages, because sometimes we get new refugees that don't speak English at all, and I could translate, and so that's how I end up working here. I teach the job readiness class with different skills, how to build a resume, how to prepare for interviews, and how to complete HR paperwork, and anything that is related to job. Some of the new refugees lack knowledge they don't know, they're not gonna go seek out opportunities on their own. For me, it's important to see them grow and thrive, and not just to be stuck in one job that pays really nothing and is struggling, especially when you're struggling in the refugee camp. You don't want to be struggling here. So for me, I want to see them have better lives. That's why I think it's really important for me to share the knowledge and help them. There's a lot of things that refugees need help with, but the case workers, they are so overwhelmed with so many refugees. So some of the stuff you have to do on your own because there's not a lot of resources, or maybe there are resources, but we don't know. And especially when you're trying to learn English, you cannot communicate. It happened to me. To me, I felt like it was kind of like a good lesson for us to learn how to be independent and how to learn how to find things on our own than always waiting for somebody else to help us. To me, I look at it as a positive way, but for somebody else, they can look at it as a very negative way. I think the average refugee, it's very difficult at the beginning. It's hard work, and that's what I tell people, that if you wait on luck, it's not gonna happen. We were told that we only had 6 months to figure out everything on our own. 6 months, you get a job, and then you have to start paying the fare, the airline fare that brought us here, and then we also have to learn a new language, and then you have to figure out how to go back to school, what you need, if you need a GED, and where to go, because you don't know where to go. And all this, you working full time, and you also learning how to get around. You don't have a car. And all these things happen in 6 months. So as an American, I want to know, if you go to a different country, can you survive within 6 months, go to Somalia or Ethiopia, learn a brand new language, and then get a job and have a successful life in 6 months? It's impossible. You cannot do that.
You did a really good job here. If I gave you any minuses, it would just be on this right here. This is hard.
We at Piece of Thread empower and employ refugee women in vulnerable populations. We started here in Clarkston. Our heart and our mission is to empower, teach, train, and to really give them a voice, and their first voice being a job.
So can you tell me what the hardest part was of this bag?
It's all contract labor. We sell online, trunk shows, people opening up their home through boutiques, and we do festivals. They don't have to have any sewing skill. They come here to the training center for 4 to 6 months. It depends on how fast a woman learns and how fast she picks up. And then she learns every pattern. When she completes the program, then we give her a machine along with a big box filled with every color of thread and notion that she might need, a small table, an iron, an ironing board, a good light so that she can sew in her home. Our goal is to get her home and to get working.
We came in United States, so really hard because first challenge is the language, but we do know how to write the English. We do know how to read, but language English is not our native language. My friend, she is also she from Burma too. So we communicate, and in those times I must stay at home, mom and wife. So that's why I'm looking for some kind of my income. So that's why my friend, she told me that, hey, you can sew, come with me. And then she introduced Miss Denise, and then she liked me. But whatever how much I have skill, but they have to train. Training is good because I feel like that is a kind of knowledge, and then kind of design, and that is a kind of art. That's a good way. So they teach English, and also they teach how to sew the machine. So that's a kind of the study too.
Most of the women have a lot of little children under the age of 8. And I'm not just saying like 1 or 2, there's usually like 4 or 5 average in a home. And so she has limited access to go to places where they're going to be able to learn English. The husbands have the opportunity because they can come and go more freely. The women stay home with the children, the husbands go to work or find jobs. So the freedom of being able to have a good part-time job for a woman to be able to be trained, the men really don't bug me at all. They love this because they know there's a short time that there's going to be a lot of help needed while she's training, but the initial goal is for her to go home so that she can work. And then once she has a job and starts making money, then she's connected to more people like us, and we can help find ways for her to get to ESL classes. There's more language, there's more love, there's more safety, there's more trust. And with all of that, there's an ability to learn better.
Closing? Was the hardest?
Yes.
I feel not the strap.
No, the strap is good.
The strap was easier?
Yeah. Not easier, but it's good. I can.
I think we come into it as Europeans, Western thinking, that we're going to come bring them all that they need. And we have all the answers. But I think we forget the person that has fled from war had a very great life. They loved their country. They knew their country. They knew how to be resourceful there and how to network, and they knew how to find their way. They had their family, their oikos. They don't have that here. We can come together and make it a beautiful place for both of us to have friendships, and that they can be a part of our everyday, and that they can teach us as much as we want to teach them. The most important thing for them is to create dignity while we do that. I like to give them my friendship first. That is the most valuable, the most priceless gift I believe that we can give to them.
One of our employees often says, when you first get here, you are not free because you aren't free to you don't know how to communicate. So communication and understanding the culture here and understanding what words mean and what even body language means, all of that is a pretty steep hill to climb.
When we went to the refugee camp in Benin, we didn't know that we're going to be split when we come to the U.S. So when we got the list to come to Clarkston, we found out that my uncles had to stay behind for 6 months. We had to make a decision, either we stay with them, which we didn't know that we're going to get another chance to come here. So we took a chance to come and left them behind. So when they came to the U.S., we couldn't stay in the same house. It was difficult because back in the Congo, my uncles were the ones taking care of the bills, taking care of everything. So my mom had to learn to be a head of the family, and we had to help. I had to help her with the bills and figuring out everything else that needed to be done. When I got to Clarkston, I got a job as a housekeeper at the Hilton in downtown Atlanta. I had to take one bus and 2 trains, and I was with another lady that was also in a refugee camp with us. Her name is Ariane. And then we got off the wrong exit on Peachtree Street. People gave us direction, but we didn't understand how to understand the directions. So we were really like circling around the building, and it took us about an hour. We were actually late for work for an hour. But fortunately, the manager understood that we were new in the country and we never been late before. The agency World Relief that brought us, they enrolled us in the ESL class. It was actually in the Friends of Refugee building. And it was very difficult for me to go through the ESL class because I got home at 1:30 in the morning and the classes started at 9 a.m. I remember I used to be late for all my classes, but since I knew that I didn't have time to be fully present in the ESL classes, I used to learn on my own. I started making friends with people that didn't speak my own language. At the beginning, I think it's very important to learn English quickly and also learn some of American cultures, because when you're a refugee, you don't know what American values. For example, American value time, and if you're a refugee, they give you an appointment at 2 and you show up at 4. You don't understand why. Your American friend will be upset because you're late, but if you make friends at the beginning and tell you what's important to Americans, you know that if I do this, we're upset, our friendship. I think at the beginning, I didn't understand how Americans were very open. They'll come to you and then be friendly and tell you maybe a little bit of the personal stories. Some stories that in my culture I'll consider to be like secret. I used to meet different people and they'll talk to me and I couldn't believe how they were so open. After about 5 years, I found myself meeting people at the airport and talking with them and telling them personal stories or personal things where I didn't think they were secrets. I think that's when I felt like I actually had assimilated in the American culture.
For every 5 journeymen that are leaving the workplace, only 1 fills their shoes. So that's going to really affect our economy over the next few years. I've been kind of working with a few organizations that had served refugees and just saw the need for great jobs for refugees. So I moved to Atlanta and started the Lantern Project with a partnership between local church and a couple of organizations serving refugees. Our primary purpose is to provide certified construction trade training to refugees. And over the last 5 years, we've served about 150 men and women from about 25 different countries and put them through about a year-long training. After they finish the program, we tend to see about an average of about $10,000 pay increase annually.
Our guys will finish with one of 4 level 1 training certifications, either a certification in training in electricity, in welding, pipe fitting, or carpentry. And the program happens in 2 phases. The first part is called core construction. So that includes OSHA safety rules, how to use proper safety equipment, hand tools, power tools, employability skills, a lot of basic things that will help them be successful in the construction industry as a professional. And then from there, we help them based on their math levels and their experience back home and in their life experience to connect to 1 or 2 of those trades, and they continue to study those for the remaining 9 months of the program.
Make sure this is loose.
Most of these guys are working at least 40 and up to 50, 60 and more hours a week to provide for their families. Some of our guys are sending the majority of their income back home. So to be able to invest 12 or 15 hours a week in themselves to be able to get the opportunity to enter a craftsman career, it's a huge investment, and really it takes a lot of effort and commitment. They move out of the poverty cycle pretty quickly. If people invest in their lives and give them that first hand up, that first opportunity, and bridge that first gap to a better way of living, a better job, it touches every area of life. And so I think that's an important part of why we help out the community of refugees here, because eventually we're helping ourselves because we're helping out our neighbors.
Anyone who's worked in hospitality knows that the hospitality industry is famous for its turnover. And in some of our kind of heart of house areas, we've faced some real challenges with turnover, selection, retention, which really kind of forced the leadership here at the club to contemplate where we select our team members from.
I was working with a great organization, Hope International. We were doing microfinance around the world, and I lived here in this community. And as I would go to the post office and go to the grocery store, run errands, I would meet people who were coming from the countries that we at Hope were serving. Conversations would always lead to the same place. Can you please help me find a job? No one is hiring and I can't find a good job. And I always thought this was really amusing because in my network there were plenty of people that were hiring that were so desperate to find people. We had no concept of what the staffing world was like, but we're getting to do the impossible. We're providing and connecting refugees who are resettling here in the U.S. with jobs. It's an incredible adventure every day.
Saw the opportunity with Chris, the founder of Amplio, to kind of step forward and to begin to serve even a greater number of refugees. There's a huge need just across the market for living wage jobs. Obviously, there's still a need for people to kind of fill these jobs that typical Americans, for many reasons, are not taking.
This is a group of people that really wants to add value to the local economy. They want to have a job, they want to pay taxes, they want their children to be able to access great education. They're excited that they're here, and even though they may not have chosen this path, we see them as the refugee workforce.
We, at that time, were becoming more aware of this refugee workforce, and Amplio made the process so easy. They were making sure the right introductions, the right training, the right follow-up was in place, and really took all of the strain off of us in terms of recruiting and hiring and training these individuals.
The hardest thing when I came to this country was one, getting a job, and also at the same time to have some money and to send for your family. I came from Ethiopia, and I have been in this country for the last 4 years. I was out of the job, and somebody told me about the Lantern project. I am studying on electricity and carpenter. So on the near future, when I'm finished my study, I hope I will get a trade job. So that's a good thing. And now I'm working too, so that's a good thing.
They bring a dynamic feel to the environment. When you think about culinary and hospitality, you think about diversity, you think about culture. And that's what we've seen so far, is that they bring a different dynamic to the table.
Many of our clients come to us and say that you've drastically increased our capacity. A lot of our other employees seem to be pushed harder, not just having an impact as far as the refugees' lives or the impact financially for the company. It's affecting the culture within a lot of these companies, which has been very neat.
What was really refreshing to me was the interest that some of our members demonstrated towards this whole idea of being advocates for the refugee workforce. If we could somehow be advocates and be a force of change, then we are truly enlivening our mission to a much further extent with regards to creating exceptional experiences for all those we serve. Now we're serving a much larger community beyond just the country club. What I've sensed from our team members here is that renewed sense of the feeling of a job well done, taking pride in the work that we do, has really been enhanced by welcoming these refugees to our workforce.
I've been going to the Clarkston library since I moved to this country 17 years ago, and I continue using the library because I get entrepreneurial books on businesses, on leadership. If I don't read or I don't educate myself, then I wouldn't know how to manage people. That's why I think continued learning is very important for me. The war started when I had just finished 10th grade. Since I wasn't allowed to go to school, that time I did not study at all. But then I started borrowing lessons from friends over the weekend. I thought that the war was going to be temporary and then I'll be able to go back to school. But then it was already 6 months and I didn't know how long it's going to take. I didn't cover everything, but I was able to cover the major subjects such as math, chemistry, physics. When I came here, since I didn't speak English, my first goal was to learn English. It took me about 10 months. And then once I finished that, I wanted to get my GED because I was told since I was 18 years old, I couldn't go back and continue in high school. So after the GED, I was able to start at Georgia Premier College. It's a 2-year community college. And then after that, I transferred to UGA. And at UGA, I was pretty much on my own. Biology was actually very challenging for me. I remember dropping out the course because the way I was trained back in the Congo was memorizing things instead of understanding it. So when I retook it by itself in the summer and I changed the way I study, but trying to understand the subject first, I was able to do well. But definitely it was very challenging the first year when I was in college. I was still working as a housekeeper at the Hilton, and then I also work full-time at Waffle House. So I used to work in the morning, 7 to 2, and then take night classes. So during the week, I average about 54 hours of working, and then also full-time in school. I think I was taking more than 12 credit. Education gives you an opportunity to get a better job and get a better pay where you can support yourself, your family, and support your relatives as well. Back in their own country, refugees are very social. Over here, when you have to balance school and work, it's very difficult, especially if you're not disciplined. And usually some of them kind of sacrifice their education and then focus on work and socializing. So you have to learn how to balance, which is so difficult. I think that's one of the most challenging things, time management. You have to put your work in it and sacrifice a little bit on the social life, which I did. I was working 2 jobs and going to college. I didn't have time to spend with my family or friends, but that was the price I was willing to pay.
Refugee Career Hub is one of 7 programs at Friends Refugees. We started really through a missionary who understood that there's so much more potential with refugees than the connections that they're initially provided with. We started through humble beginnings, 10 computers in a room in a church, and every computer had Microsoft Word and the internet. And so with the help of the local church, with the help of corporate businesses that were able to offer days of service for their staff to give back to the community, and just from the local residents in Clarkston, we were able to really develop walk-in hours 3 days a week. The volunteers get to connect with refugees who have escaped war, and they get to help them formulate their story, on a resume. The companies call us now that we have a database of highly skilled community members who are eager to work, they're resilient, and they're ready to learn, either to reintegrate into their former career, or they're able to start over. And explore career opportunities that they may not have been able to attain, in their home country. We've seen some amazing success in being able to see a refugee from when they first arrive, working in a chicken factory, to being able to work more directly in the field of their calling, their gifts. And they're so grateful because they know that the skills that they have been trained in and that they've developed over the years from back home, can actually be utilized in our American society, in our workforce. And that's ultimately our win.
Generally speaking, immigrants tend to create more jobs than they might, fill, right? And so in the paradigm of some people saying, well, if an immigrant or a refugee comes into America and they take a job, that could be a job that an American could take. If you look at just the broad stats, at least here in Georgia, immigrants tend to be more entrepreneurial, and so in the vein of creating small businesses and new economic opportunities, immigrants and refugees as a category are creating job opportunities where none existed before. And so the net gain, are more jobs.
I started thinking that I was not 100% into that program. I wasn't passionate about it. When I couldn't do medicine anymore, I had to start looking at my other options. So I started reading a lot of books about business, and I started thinking, why would I spend money on school if I can learn ways to make money? That's how I started exploring the entrepreneurial journey. It took me a year to decide if that's what I wanted to do or not. This was scary. Thank you for calling the Rev Travel. This is Natalie speaking. The cheapest ticket is $6.95, and I love traveling. I'm passionate about it, and I love freedom to go visit families overseas and friends. So, and I will always find good deals. And for friends, I always book ticket for friends and families. So I start thinking that maybe that's something that I enjoy doing, and that's how I picked that. So he's gonna make a connection in Boston from Atlanta. I started looking at programs where I can volunteer. So I stumbled through Friends of Refugee. I didn't know they existed here in Clarkston. So I was online, and there was the entrepreneurship program that they had an orientation. So I went through it, and in December they called me for an interview. So I had not started the travel business, so I had to convince them, because there were a lot of people that apply. So I had to convince them why I was the right candidate for that. And I think the program really helped me focus to what type of customers I wanted to work with and what type of business model I wanted to have. So I'm really grateful for that. From Boston, you'll be going to London. Once my business grow, I would like to employ some of the refugees here that speak different languages, so they can assist other people in the language. Boston at 346, you have I'm still in the same course, because my goal has always been to helping people. I remember working in the microbiology lab. After a few months, I was very miserable, because I was so used to interacting with people and helping people. I mean, I knew that I was doing something that was worth it, but I felt like I was not happy doing that. I think I made the right decision.
I think the idea that refugees are victims is a really bad idea, even though by definition they have been victims. But when they get here, working through the challenges that they work through just to even get here, make them overcomers, most of them. So this idea that they're a drain on our economy and on our systems just isn't true. Most are not. Most contribute, and that's what we've seen here. Refuge is a nonprofit coffee company, and we have a primary mission. Our primary mission is to provide living wage jobs, job training, and mentorship to refugees right here and immigrants right here in Atlanta, specifically in Clarkston. But the way we do that is through a coffee shop, through catering with our coffee trucks. And what that enables us to do is to go beyond the job training piece, even though that's central, we create a place here that is agendaless and safe and welcoming. So it tells the refugee community, you're welcome here. It also tells people beyond this community, you're welcome to come and engage with us. This is not as hard as you think it is. It's just having coffee with someone. If you grew up here, then you know what opportunities are available to you, and you know which ones aren't, and you know how to knock on the door of that opportunity. So refugees or immigrants who work for us, haven't lived here long, don't know the opportunities. Maybe they even speak English pretty well, but they don't know how to open those doors. But people who've lived here forever do. And so when they become friends, often it's just this series of, oh, well, let me open this door for you. You have what it takes to walk through the door. You don't need me to hold your hand and walk through it. You just need me to knock on it and get it open for you.
I had a friend that asked me to come meet her for coffee here one day. We stayed like an hour, and I just thought it was really cool. So then I started bringing friends, and then I just kind of started making it a place to come every week. I got to know the baristas, and they learned my name, so it was fun. It was fun to come by. Then eventually, we had a couple of them over for dinner, and they came. I didn't even think they would come to our house, but they were very willing to come. So it just became a kind of a hangout spot for me, just on the way places back and forth. I mean, the minute you say hello to a refugee, they want to have you to their house. So it is not hard at all to make new friends with refugees. And then once you meet one family, then their neighbor pops over and says, you come to my house tomorrow night. So it kind of just keeps growing. And so for us, we now are trying to put our house on the market and move to Clarkston so that we can just be closer, because we would like to sit on people's porches every night and practice English with them.
The people we work with here, we do this work with them. It's not just for them. Maybe that opening the door of opportunity is something we do for them, but they take it from there. And even our mission here to make people feel welcome, we do that together. We're just positioned to tell a more accurate, more beautiful refugee story to the rest of Clarkston, Atlanta, and even beyond. It's killer customer service and really good coffee, but there's a subtext under that, and that's that this is what a refugee looks like. They're just like you, and they're hardworking, and they produce a great product, and they know how to engage and how to have a really good conversation. And so we feel like we're getting to tell a better story.
I don't have a single case to know about the refugees who are relying on the government to pay them, like their food stamp, their rent, or their insurance or whatever, because they are working hard here. Right now I'm working as a part of recruiting company. I really enjoy helping refugees. They really need someone to help them. So we are trying our best to provide job for them, and that's what I'm enjoying to do. Because the day I came here, I needed help and I was looking for help. So I know that everyone newly moving here, they are looking for someone to help them.
Good morning, everybody. Today we celebrate World Refugee Day, which was first recognized on June 20th of 2001. But as you all know, refugees have been streaming from one border to the next ever since humanity has been on the earth.
When they leave their country, they're leaving everything. And so they're coming here and they're starting with a blank slate.
But when you think about if that were you, everything you've left behind, it really brings it home that, nobody wants to be a refugee. These are strong people that have a lot of perseverance.
What's in the people's hearts is so important. And I find that the people's hearts in Clarkston are wide open, are giving, people want to share. And so give yourselves a hand, Clarkston.
Regardless of whether you believe they should be here or should not be here, there is a community here. There are over 300 cities in the U.S. that have a large community of refugees that have resettled in that city. Most of us are probably only a few hours away from a vastly different world than the one that we're most familiar with.
When I was a refugee and I came and I got my job at Waffle House, I remember some of the Americans that were working with me, they were telling me that they believe refugees came here and it's still Americans' job. They give us houses, they make things easier for us, but they don't understand that things are not easier for us. So I always had to kind of educate them a little bit how the process works. And I tell the refugees that it is your job to kind of educate them in a peaceful way without being offended.
Think about the stereotypes that you hold, because we all do that. And if we don't know a person who is the thing that we stereotype, then the stereotype prevails. But the minute you know someone, the stereotype goes away.
What we're building here now is hopefully a future community, an intentional community that is compassionate, that's welcoming, that has respect for each other and our differences, that really taps into the cultural capitalism and the human potential we have here.
If you live anywhere near refugees, befriend one, make one friendship.
In the United States of America is known as a beacon of freedom and of light all around the world. And part of us emanating those principles is us accepting refugees as people who are fleeing persecution and war and conflict. And in fact, when we as a country can accept refugees and not be afraid of them, it speaks volumes to tyrannies and dictatorships around the world that are persecuting the very people that we are willing to accept as refugees.
To the men and the women and the families who have been displaced and who have chosen to live here, my message to you is simple.
You are welcome. Welcome home.